I've always been bothered by this experience, and to this day I still have dreams about it. I'm now 38 years old. The story begins when I was 21. Back in 2003, I was living with two roommates in an apartment in Minnesota. They were friends of mine from high school. Our life was usually pretty boring, just three guys hanging around playing video games, that kind of thing. One day I came home after working a long shift at the grocery store I was employed by, and my roommates had a Ouija board set up on the living room floor with their respective girlfriends. They excitedly informed me that they had contacted a spirit. They were asking it all sorts of dumb questions like, what kind of car do I drive? And does my boyfriend really love me? Just really mundane stuff. A non-believer, I jokingly remarked that the spirit was probably angry with their questions, and the board said yes. I felt it was my friends messing with me, so I decided to run a little test. I sat down with the group and asked its name. The spirit said its name was Mike. I asked it to prove that it was a real spirit and not my friends, just dinking around by telling me something only I would know. The spirit, Mike, responded by spelling out S-U-E, or Sue, which is a sister I had not, and still have not, met and never told my friends about. While this was indeed odd, I still was not convinced. I next asked the spirit who I would marry. The board spelled out Kelly Anderson. I didn't know anyone by that name, so I laughed it off and said I didn't believe Mike was real. One of my roommates then mentioned that he had read somewhere that if a spirit counts backwards from 10 to 0, they can escape the board. The planchette began to spell out 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, which freaked out the girls, and they threw the planchette across the room and put away the board. I didn't think anything of it and went to bed. A month later, I was trying to fall asleep one night, but it couldn't because I felt like something was watching me. I swore I saw a shadow creep along the wall behind my TV that was humanoid shaped, but I just wrote it off as a trick of the mind because I was tired. I finally managed to doze off a bit later and woke up to a feeling of being dragged off the edge of my bed. When I regained my senses, I was right on the edge of my bed about to fall onto the floor. Still in denial, I thought maybe I just slept funny. Fast forward to 2007. I'm still working at the same grocery store, and I meet a woman named Kelly who had recently gotten a job there. I didn't think anything of it because her surname was not Anderson. I got to know this woman, and we started dating a few months later. In 2009, we got engaged. One night I was sitting with her in the living room of our apartment, and I was thinking about the Ouija incident from 6 years earlier. I told her the story of Mike and how the spirit informed me I was going to marry a Kelly Anderson, but I scoffed because her last name was different. She got really quiet and just stared at me. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me that one time she was thinking of asking her stepfather, who I had not met yet at that time, to adopt her. If she had done this, her last name would have been Anderson. It freaked me out a bit. In 2010, we got married and moved into a small house in Wisconsin. Strange things started happening around our house immediately. I would hear whispers in the night as I tried to sleep. Kelly never heard anything. Sometimes I would wake up and see the shadows of little creatures moving about outside our bedroom door. Eventually, I started to wake up to a feeling of something sitting on my chest. I would be unable to move, and I would see this horrible being staring down at me as it pinned me. It was wispy and malevolent looking. I would eventually regain my ability to move again and fight it off, and it would disappear. I know this sounds like sleep paralysis, but under the circumstances, I don't believe it was something that simple. Not to mention, this continued to happen all the way to 2012, when my son was born. For 2 years I fought off this entity that would come multiple times a week to try and possess me? Kill me? I have no idea. I was constantly tired and worn out. Throw a newborn into the equation, and I was exhausted. The attacks continued until my son turned 3 months old. Then one night, I heard a strange voice saying something in an unfamiliar language on my baby monitor. I ran into my son's room, but no one was there. Not a thing. After that night, the attacks on me continued, but became more sparse. Eventually it would maybe happen a couple times a month. Unfortunately, in 2014, things didn't work out with Kelly and we got a divorce. She moved back to Minnesota, and I started to see a new woman a few months after our divorce finalized. The second Kelly moved out, the attacks completely stopped. I got remarried in 2016 to my second wife. I have been attack free for 6 years now, but I still think about Mike and the Ouija board. Was this a spirit that was always attached to my ex? Did it attach to me because of the Ouija board and now has attached itself to my son? I ask him if he's ever experienced anything unexplained, but I never get a direct answer. I fear I'll never have the answer. The following story happened to me in fall of 2020 when I was a freshman at a small Midwest college. All of my life, I have told myself that I would never do a Ouija board session. However, a few nights ago, after a few drinks, my friends convinced me to try it. After losing a friend to suicide last week, I tried to speak to them through the board. I asked questions that only my deceased friend would know, and they were not answered correctly. I thought that the other person I was playing the board with was moving the piece. I became upset and started cursing at the spirits, calling the Ouija board a hoax. This would later prove to be a mistake. After a while of watching my friends play, I decided to be a smartass and ask if the spirits could put me to sleep, because I was quite tired, and I'd heard similar stories of Ouija boards making people pass out. My friends agreed to ask the spirits to put me to sleep. I relaxed and allowed my body to become completely vulnerable. According to my friends, the piece on the board started to go crazy. The piece was moving incredibly fast and spelling out my name and telling me to sleep. I was out cold at this time. Although my friends claim I was sleeping, I could comprehend everything that was said. Once the board had spelled out "wake up," my eyes opened, and I could see and talk, but my body was completely paralyzed. I tried to remain calm, but I was completely stuck. I was able to talk to my friends and tell them what was going on, but they didn't believe me. Their minds did in fact change after another guy came up and hit me in the man parts. I didn't flinch, and that was the point that everyone believed what was really going on. I wanted out of the state I was in so bad. I was terrified. My friends went back to the board and tried to have the spirits put me back to normal. In the process, I was snapped in and out of being able to talk and not. At one point I started crying. I have no idea why I was crying, but it just happened. I didn't have any control over my own emotions. After the crying became uncontrollable, creepy laughter along with very strange, stiff movements of my limbs followed. At this point, it was clear to me that I had no longer had control of my own body or actions. I tried my best to fight whatever force had control of me, but I just couldn't. It all came to an end when a voice inside of my head kept repeating, "Follow the light." Then, shortly after, someone in the room turned on the light switch, and I simply snapped out of it. I woke up with pure joy, thankful to be out of that state. I jumped in my friend's arms with joy of having control over my body again. In the aftermath of that fateful night, the encounter with the Ouija board became an indelible chapter in my life. The skepticism I once held transformed into a profound awareness of the mysterious forces that can transcend our understanding. The struggle for control over my own body, the unsettling commands, and the eventual release after following an enigmatic directive left an imprint on my consciousness. This experience compelled me to acknowledge the existence of unseen dimensions, urging me to approach the spiritual world with a newfound respect and caution. As I reflect on that fall night, I carry with me not just a story, but a profound lesson about the complexities of the supernatural and the delicate balance between curiosity and the potential dangers that lie beyond the veil. This probably happened about a year ago, when me and my two good friends were in the basement and my other friend had his Ouija board with him. We've used them before and have had one of our two bad experiences before this, but nothing comparable to this. So we're in the basement, lights off, and one candle above the board. Me and two friends, we all know none of us move the piece. Like, really. So, we start using the board, and asking if anything is there, blah blah. So we get a response from some spirit, which I firmly believe was a demon. Doubt it was Zozo, so we start asking questions, and it just starts to feel very dark and uncomfortable. I can't remember exactly what we asked, but my friend said, I feel like he's very smart. So the reason he asked that was because my other buddy asked what he wanted from us. Peace went from E then to yes over and over. So we were thinking that he's just saying our eyes. Sounds crazy at first, but it makes sense once you understand that in the Bible, your soul is linked to your eyes. The spirit also went from E to S over and over, and at that point, I told my friend that was asking the question to say goodbye. There was no light in the room at all. The only light was the flame, no light being projected from the flame, only the orange flame. It was very dark and felt very evil and dark. My friend then asked if he had held a lot of knowledge, and of course the spirit said yes. We're all uncomfortable, so he says goodbye, and I just feel off after the session. Something was just so off, so I go to bed. When I get into my bed, I feel a nauseating feeling. I would have thrown up even moving my head a little bit. I wasn't drinking or smoking or anything else. When you get nauseous from a spirit, they're either attempting to possess you or trying to attach themselves to you. The next day, me and one of my friends got to work because we worked together, and I felt off. I felt that my thoughts were not mine, and I couldn't control what I was thinking about. I was working a register at the time, and I nearly got on my knees and started yelling, grabbing my head. It was like I was going insane. A wave of dread and panic ran over me. Later I talked to my friend, and he said he experienced the same thing. Since then I haven't had the balls to do another session on the board again, but maybe soon.